During the 90s and early 2000s, Pokemon fever spread across the globe like a certain disease that shall not be named.
I got a fever, and the only prescription is more
Pokemon.
And this led to there being a bunch of games in which you raise monsters. Chief among these contenders probably being Digimon. There was always that one kid at school that sniffed glue and thought Digimon was better than Pokemon.
Me fail English? That's impossible.
But today I'm going to be talking about a lesser known contender, Monster Rancher. And just so you know, Americans and non-PAL region people, the game I'm talking about today is technically Monster Rancher 2 for everyone else. Cause to my Millen, Colin and the infinite sadness, we only ever received one Monster Rancher game over here, which was the second game released as if it was the first game. Hope that clears up any confusion that was about to happen in the comments. Damn it, I should have not said anything, I could have got more comments. I hear comments are good for the YouTube algorithm. This game is near and dear to my heart and I have so much nostalgia for it. I even put it at the very top of my top 25 PS1 games video I did a while back. And quite honestly, during the course of making this video, I've dug deeper into the game and it's made me love it even more. There was so much weird stuff in this game that I never got to experience until I made this video. But anyway, without further ado, let's take a look at one of my favourite games of all time. Hey Mum, do you remember that game, Monster Rancher?
Is that the game you used to nick all my Clannad CDs for you?
Monster Rancher starts with you entering your name and gender, and then you're at the Monster Tamers Association getting your license to be a tamer. The first thing they make you do is take a personality test, and I'm honestly not sure if this actually changes anything. And you have to answer the burning questions like, sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night and cannot go back to sleep, or unfortunately in this world, money can solve most problems. And then after a short wait, we are provided with a trainer assistant called Coltia. Is it just me who thinks it's weird that this organisation is giving out young indentured servants? They're just nonchalantly like,
you're going to spend the rest of your life with this schmuck, whether you like it or not.
And you'll be reported to the cyber police.
Don't worry, the game gets even stranger. And with that, you are let loose to do pretty much whatever you want straight from the get-go. You start off in a town area of this game where you have 5 options: the market, the shrine, the lab, file and ranch. The market is where you can get basic monsters for free with a changing selection as the seasons change. But the shrine is where the main magic and selling point of this game is found. In here you can put in other PS1 games and audio CDs to get monsters to use in the game. And it works like this. The game will ask you to remove the Monster Rancher disc and then you put in whatever game or awesome local band from the early 2000s you want to use. Then after it's read the disc, you take it out and put the Monster Rancher CD back in. And then the Shrine Maiden will tell you whether you can get a monster on the disc or not. What monsters you can get is based on what ranks you have achieved in the game and some arbitrary things that you have to do to unlock certain monster types. Don't worry, I'll rant about that later. And then you get this glorious cutscene where you're thinking, ooh, I wonder what I'm gonna get, and then it's just your 50 millionth Tiger Hopper.
Disappointed!
And this gimmick is a hell of a selling point for this game. I have so many memories of me sitting cross-legged on my bedroom floor trying out all my parents' CDs and my PS1 games. It's such a cool game mechanic even if the process of doing a bunch of CDs is laborious as Hades. I went through every single one of my PS1 games for this video and it was a nightmare on my old back. Especially when you're getting cock-blocked by the Shrine Maiden at every bloody turn. I honestly have nightmares about this bint saying, I'm sorry but this monster can only be reproduced by an authorised IMA trainer. It's funny that even when you've beat the game you can't reproduce most of the monsters. And the next option in town is the evil, scary genetic experiment monster lab, where you have a couple of options: freeze, combine, revive and delete. Freeze does what it says on the tin and it freezes your monsters, which stores them away kinda like the PC box in Pokemon.
Cool party.
It is a little bit annoying that there's not that many slots for the monsters though. And then there's Combine, which allows you to mix and match all the different monster types in the game. Every monster has a main type and some will have a subtype if they are a hybrid monster. When you mix 2 monsters together, the game will take into account these main and subtypes and give you percentages for what monster you will get. But luckily you can easily save scum this to get the monster you want eventually, which is handy. Some of the combinations that you end up with will make you question the meaning of your existence.
Let him who hath understanding reckon the number of the beast.
For it is a few.
Anyway, I started blasting. Bang! Bang!
That one is going to go with me to the grave. What were they thinking? And the last 2 options in here are pretty self-explanatory. Revive brings your monster out of a freeze and delete deletes them from existence. Well, with that we move on to the last 2 options. File is just a place to save and load the game, and Ranch takes you to basically where the whole game actually occurs.
Send her to the ranch. Send her to the ranch.
Well, before we head off to the ranch, why don't we go through some of the beautiful creations that you're going to be raising on your eponymous Monster Ranch. Just a heads up, not all of these monsters are going to be pure breed, but you get the idea.
Ludicrous speed! Go!
Arrowhead. It's a crab, or maybe it's Sebastian.
Under the sea.
Ape.
Monkey.
Baku, it's a big doggo. Is it Clifford's dad? Color Pandora, unholy human centipede abomination.
Here's Johnny.
Gabu,
That is one big pile of shit.
with a face. Garly, a haunted mask and cape. Hair, a rabbit that thankfully isn't a furry. But if you mix it with an ego, then you're talking, sister, furry central.
Put your pants on and stop breaking shit.
Hopper is a lemur, probably. Kato is a fat cat that has a bit of a drinking problem.
I don't like this one bit.
Moochie, the Pikachu beater.
Can you tell the two difference between these photos? Cause I can't.
They're the same picture.
Mono is a floating wall that's possessed.
And you see the Reptoid pop out at the last minute.
Pixie, literally a hot girl in a bikini.
You guys are so funny. Why do you want to see me do squats? Okay.
Plant, it is a plant that's alive.
Nature is healing. Namaste.
Tiger,
Tiger.
Zilla, it's a big whale with the legs.
Hell's heart stab at thee and all that bullshit.
But here's some of my favourites that I refuse to mock even for the sake of memes. Ghost, it's a Casper, who's also a cute little magician with lasers. Henga, a ruddy cool robot, enough said. Gollum, a big rocky boy. Gel, a big old jelly boy that turns into things. How does it turn into a fully operational helicopter? I don't know, but I don't care. Naga, a big old snaky boy. Suezo, a cheeky eyeball stalk on a leg that I love with all my heart. I even have a tattoo of this lad. Zoom is a dinosaur.
I love you, you love me. We're a happy family.
And those aren't all the main types, but it's most of the important ones, and I'll go over some of the weirder ones later on. Well, once you have one of these lovable critters in your possession, you can go back to the ranch where most of the game takes place. At the start of every month, you have to feed your monster, and there's loads of options that all have different effects. And every monster has foods they like and foods they hate. But if it's one of my monsters, they're going to be getting the cheapest food possible, the potato.
I have potato blood in my veins.
And once you get to your ranch, you have 4 chances to do an activity per calendar month. And most of the time you're going to be in the training tab boosting your monster's stats. There are 6 stats to choose from: life, which unsurprisingly gives you more health for battles and expeditions; power, which determines how much damage you'll do with power based moves; intelligence, which determines the power of your intelligence based attacks but also your defense to them; skill is literally your accuracy stat; speed, which determines your dodge chances in battle; and finally defense, which determines your defense against power based attacks. For every stat there is a basic training regimen that slightly raises the stat and results in lower fatigue. And this training will have your monster doing things like reading books, smacking dominoes, and dodging boulders like Indiana Jones.
What you did.
But there's also heavy training regimens that highly raise a stat and normally raise a secondary stat while minusing another. But these also fatigue your monster a lot more. There's a couple of different ways that these training sessions can go. Your monster can succeed, which is self-explanatory, but they can also do great, which gives them a big boost to their stat gains. And on the flip side, they could also cheat, which gives them a lower gain, and they can also fail, which gives them nothing.
I am never gonna financially recover from this.
And there's also errantees that you can go on, which are a month-long training session for your monster, which is the only way you can learn new moves. These have you doing crazy things like punching sharks, fighting giant crabs, and fighting giant silverback gorillas. And if your monster manages to succeed on every week's mission, they get to fight a wild monster at the end for the chance to win some cash. But sadly, you can't control them in these battles, which is annoying. And the other thing you can do is let your monster rest, which it will need after a few training sessions.
Please go the fuck to sleep.
Colt will tell you what your monster's condition is every morning, so it's basically a balancing act. And how you treat your monster will determine their loyalty stat down here. And this element of the game gets you really attached to your little critter, because you might have a right little cheeky git to start off with that you give a bunch of tough love to. And it might hate you for it at the time, but when it grows up and turns into a Spartan-like monster warrior, they appreciate all the tough love you gave them. It's basically Monster Dad Simulator, and I love it.
Arthur, get out of the tank. You're not my dad. Get out of the fucking tank. I am your dad.
You can raise this stat by scolding them when they do wrong so that they grow up with a crippling fear of failure and a host of mental issues. Why wasn't I good enough for you, Daddy? But you could also be a bad dad and praise them when they do wrong so they turn out to be a total bellend.
Do you know what? That's pathetic.
You can track him, maybe not my
No.
See you later.
So like with real parenting, a delicate balance needs to be maintained for the best monsters. I mean, if your monster's spoiled too much, it'll ask to play with you like the soft little bubble child that it is. And you can get 2 different minigames depending on the monster. You can get a weird rock paper scissors sumo wrestling match, or a pseudo first person shooter styled snowball game with your monster. Sadly, it's not like Doom and you can't just gore your monster with a chainsaw.
You can take a scimitar, gore your neighbor David.
You can tell how you're doing with your monster with this style stat here. That will change depending on how you treat your monster. And if you get too pally with your monster, you won't be able to raise their loyalty stat past a certain point. And what does this stat do, I hear you ask? Well, that's a good segue into the other big part of this game, the battles, because it comes into play there. Basically in this game you have 6 league ranks to work your way through, E up to S, with a further 4 tournaments in the S rank called the Major 4 that you have to win to quote unquote beat the game. When you enter one of these tournaments, the way you win is by having the most victories after all the matches have been played. And the battle system works like this. You control your monster against the opponent on a 2D plane like it was a 2D beat 'em up. You have 4 move slots that can be activated when you hit a certain range from the enemy, and both monsters have a guts gauge, which is what you use to activate your monster's various moves. This will steadily go up through the course of the battle, and every monster's guts regen is at a different speed. Thankfully, you are given a percentage for how likely it is your move will hit the enemy. You can also push the enemy away if they're getting a little bit too close for your liking.
Don't touch me!
And like I said, the loyalty stat comes into play here, because if that stat is too low, your monster will do a thing called foolery. This stops it in its tracks for a couple of seconds and raises the accuracy of any move your opponent will try. You can win by getting a knockout or having the most health by the time the timer runs down. It's a unique battle system that I enjoy a lot and gives you a sense of control a lot of other monster battling games don't. I always like to go for speedy builds and monsters in this game because they can be really hard to deal with, especially for the big lads. Winning these tournaments is the main way you make money in the game, and it's also how you get fame, which doesn't do too much, but we'll cover that later on. The last thing there is to go over is the item shop, where you can buy stuff to feed your monster, which you will be seeing a lot of if you actually plan on playing this game optimally. Because as an adult, I know the best strategy for getting a good monster that lives for ages is the old mint leaf and nuts oil strategy, where you constantly feed your monster mint leaves and nuts oil on a rotation with training. And this basically allows you to train your monster every single day with no rest, which really adds up over time and gives you an absolutely beast monster. Sure, feeding your monster stuff every day can be a bit tedious, but it's worth it to be the best.
You know that I'm the cream of the crop.
But after all that fun stuff, it's now time to address a very dark part of this game. Your monsters can die, and it's the saddest thing ever. Their little soul leaves their little body, and then they have a bloody funeral for it.
Oh, Danny boy.
Bugger Aerith or Aerith or whatever her bloody name was from Final Fantasy VII dying. This is the true traumatizing PS1 game moment.
Popeye's chicken sandwich.
So for this video I went through and beat the whole game with my charming drunk cat number 2. Rest in peace, drunk cat 1. I hope you're proud of your son. Ghost drunk cat!
The Force will be with you. Always.
And after this I assumed I would be able to reproduce most of the monsters in the game, but that would be a wrong assumption to make, because I found out in the course of making this video that there's a bunch of esoteric bollocks that you have to go through to get certain monsters in this game. So let's go through some. Right, to unlock the ghost monster you must first let a monster die and then spend a bunch of money for a shrine for it. Then over the years in the game you'll be asked to upgrade it at random times. Random is a common theme in this section by the way. And eventually your master, Master Pabs, will show up and scold you for not keeping the grave clean. And then you go back again and find a stick, and you use this stick in a monster combination and you get a little ghost boy. Little dead child.
Alrighty then.
Okay, so this one also involves death. Basically, at some point in the game, you receive seeds from Colt's aunt that runs the item shop. You plant these seeds on your ranch, and over the course of 10 years in-game, you'll get little updates on the tree from time to time until eventually you get the message that the tree has passed away. And anytime a monster passes away after this, they will be reincarnated as this hideous tree monster.
I'm sad that I lack the talent to make this shit up.
And we might as well go over the last death-related one and call it a trilogy. For this one, you'll need to be a high rank and have a monster with a high fame level. Then randomly at some point, you'll receive a creepy doll in the mail.
Don't look at me. I'm irrelevant.
Only good things ever come from receiving creepy puppets. Modern fiction reinforces this. And even if you and Colt throw it away, it comes back again. Nothing suspicious about that at all. And then as with the last monster, you have to let a monster die and then they're reincarnated as a creepy ass puppet with a switchblade.
Got time for that.
This one is less weird, but you would never figure out how to do it on your own. Right, so for this one, you've got to be raising a monster type called a Hopper. Doesn't matter which one, as long as the main type is Hopper. And you have to get this Hopper up to the B class of the game. Then in the months of December, January or February, you have a chance that this critter will dig up a hot spring. And then in the hot spring, you find a slate that when mixed with a monster gives you a water goddess. What kind of drugs is this game on? I want them.
Alex, have you ever done DMT? No. Do you want to?
This one here might be the weirdest one out of all of them.
But it's most likely space alien based.
So basically, after you hit a certain rank and have a certain barn upgrade, in September on a clear night, you'll be visited by aliens. For real. And they leave a crop circle on your farm. And obviously in the morning, you and Colt are very disturbed by this. So they call their #1 alien investigator Master Pabs. He really is our own Giorgio. And then he proceeds to give us a story that sounds like it's something from the actual Ancient Aliens show.
There's definitely evidence that aliens visited North America in a distant past.
And he basically says that in ancient times the aliens came down and gave the humans a giant crystal. Then Master Pabs gets really defensive and tells Colt to shut up after she says something completely reasonable. Don't mess with Pabs and his aliens. And a few weeks later, Pabs comes back and we decide to go look out for aliens in the middle of the night. And wouldn't you know it, they happen to turn up. Ha! Take that, Colt, you alien skeptic hater! But sadly, they don't come down for a cup of tea and they blast off at the speed of light. And then on the third night they come back again, but this time they take me up on my offer for a good cup of tea. And we see the creature standing before us. A strange robot elephant thing. And it starts communicating to us for our brains. As you do. God, this game is wild. It then asks us where its clones are, because they apparently gave us the knowledge to use clones of them, but our ancestors were too dumb to use them. So he gives us a crystal that allows us to enslave clones of him, and then he goes on his merry way. How high were the people that made this game?
There's tobacco and marijuana in there. That's all it is.
This one's a little bit more normal, but there's a bunch of random chants involved and it gives me the perfect segue to explain the expeditions in this game. When you complete the tournaments in this game, you raise your fame stat, and when your fame stat gets high enough, you just might get a visit from the adventurer. He will offer to take you on an expedition, and they kind of work like Pokemon Mystery Dungeon, where you wander around a maze of corridors in search of treasures. This side game uses your monster's life stat as a thing that limits how much ground they can cover. Every time you move, energy is used, so you've got to make sure you have enough to get back to the base camp or there'll be problems. Basically, on this expedition where you can get the Phoenix reproduction item, you have to scale a rocky road that leads to the volcano where a phoenix bursts out of the top of it. And if you use your monster to search inside the volcano after this, you might get lucky enough to find a phoenix feather. I don't know what the odds are of you finding this, but I never found it on my first try like this before. And you use the feather in combination and bam, you have one of the most powerful monsters in the game. This is one of the weirdest ones, and that's saying something. Basically, throughout the course of the game, a builder called Binto will show up to offer you house upgrades and barn upgrades. And every time he upgrades your house or barn, Colt will comment on the fact that it's strange that he can do these upgrades so quickly. And she honestly gets on this guy's case about it like a crazed conspiracy theorist. But once you've beaten this game and become the Grand Master of monster battling, you finally get the answers you seek with the last house upgrade. Colt this time strangely doesn't ask about the secret to his fast building, but this was of course just the ruse. We sneak back later and it's there we find out that Binto has been using weird muscular slave men that come out of a pot to build the buildings. What crack is this game on? And we then confront Binto about his obvious use of slave labour, and like many companies in the real world who use slave labour, he gets away with it by paying us off.
I'm deeply sorry.
And you take this pot to the lab and use it in combination and you now have slave labour of your very own. Capitalism ho!
I'm escaping to the one place that hasn't been corrupted by capitalism. Space!
There are a couple that aren't as weird as Willy Wonka's mind, like how you unlock the Worm, Galley, and most importantly, Henga monsters. I love my Henga. I named him HK47.
How would you like to be the wholly owned servant to an organic meat bag?
For this one, you have to get invited to an invitational meet that happens between the two continents in this game once every 4 years. Kinda like their World Cup. And if your team wins, you will be able to reproduce these monsters. Simple. Or like how you get the dragon, where you just have to beat it at an invitational tournament. And bam, you have yourself a... And that's all I've really got to say and meme about one of my favourite games of all time. It's a strange game with a brilliant gimmick, but there's also a lot of nostalgia in it for me. But over the course of making this video and digging deeper into a game I already loved, I came out more smitten than ever. And I honestly recommend you try and play this game if you can, because it's so much damn fun. I haven't played any other game that made me feel so attached to my little critter. It feels like a real pet after a while. And I'm hoping that one of these days I can get my hands on the PS2 games that never got released in the UK for whatever reason. I hope you enjoyed this slightly different style of video from me, and if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like and comment because it really helps me out. Oh, and if you're new here, please do subscribe. Thank you for watching, and I will see you later.